The words rang in my ears long after she had spoken them. "You are nothing more than a co-parent, not my real match." Her voice was cold, almost indifferent. Like I was just another piece of furniture in her perfectly curated life. Like I wasn't the man who had given her everything, sacrificed my time, my love, my damn soul. I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I married, the woman I once believed was my soulmate. Now, all I saw was a stranger, a liar, a manipulator, a woman who had spent months gaslighting me into believing that I was the problem. I wasn't stupid. I knew something was off long before this moment. The late nights. The sudden interest in looking perfect every time she left the house. The secretive whispers on the phone, the text messages she deleted before I could ever see them. And then there was the intimacy, or rather, the lack of it. She had slowly withdrawn, claiming exhaustion, stress, or some other excuse that I was naive enough to believe. Until now. She sat across from me at the dining table, her arms crossed, looking almost bored, as if this was just another one of my insecure outbursts she had to tolerate. "You're being ridiculous, Daniel," she sighed, rolling her eyes. "Are we really doing this again? You're so paranoid." I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the edge of the table. "I saw the texts, Michelle," I said, my voice steady, but inside, I was on fire. "I saw the hotel receipts. I saw the lingerie you never wore for me. So, tell me, how long have you been fucking him?" She blinked. A flash of something crossed her face. Guilt? Fear? No, something much worse. Amusement. She let out a small, condescending laugh. "God, Daniel, you're embarrassing yourself." I threw my phone onto the table. The screen was still lit up, the images right there in front of her, texts filled with filth, nudes she had sent to another man, promises of leaving me soon, of finally being free. She paled. For the first time, her mask slipped. I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a whisper. "Say it. Say that you cheated on me. Say it to my face." Her lips parted, but no words came out. She swallowed hard, then looked away. "Coward. You can't even admit it," I scoffed, shaking my head. "You'd rather let me sit here and drown in your lies than give me the goddamn truth." She stood up abruptly, pushing her chair back. "Fine. You want the truth?" She spat. "Yes, I cheated on you. And you know what? I don't even regret it." I felt something inside me snap. She smirked, like she had just won some twisted game. "You were never enough for me, Daniel. You were just there. A placeholder. A convenient little provider." I could barely breathe. The rage that flooded my veins was ice cold. "But don't worry," she continued, voice dripping with mock sympathy. "I was going to leave you anyway. Just needed to make sure I got everything I deserved first." And there it was. The final nail in the coffin. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had been planning this. She had been waiting, calculating, ensuring she had the perfect escape before she burned our life to the ground. My mind was spinning, but one thing became crystal clear. She thought she had won. She thought I was weak. She thought I would let her walk away unscathed. She was so wrong. Because if she wanted to destroy me, I would return the favor. But I wouldn't do it in anger. No, anger was too easy, too messy. I would do it in cold, calculated precision. I would make her feel every ounce of the pain she had inflicted on me. I would ruin her. And she would never see it coming. Michelle stood there, her arms crossed, looking smug, like she had already won, like I was nothing more than an obstacle she had finally stepped over. That was her first mistake. She thought I'd break down, beg, scream, cry. She wanted to see me humiliated. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. Instead, I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair, forcing a slow, cruel smirk onto my face. "You know what, Michelle?" I said, my voice eerily calm. "Thank you." That wiped the smirk right off her face. "What?" she scoffed, narrowing her eyes. I stood up, towering over her. "Thank you for finally admitting it. Thank you for making this so much easier for me." She took a step back, suddenly wary. "Easier for you? Daniel, don't be dramatic." I chuckled. "Dramatic? No, Michelle. That's your role, isn't it? I'm just practical." I walked past her, grabbing my keys. "You want out? Fine. But you're not going to get what you think you deserve. She blinked, confusion replacing arrogance. What the hell are you talking about? I turned to face her, my smile gone. You don't know me as well as you think you do, Michelle. You spent so much time scheming behind my back, you forgot that I'm always 3 steps ahead. And with that, I walked out the door. The plan. I needed to play this carefully. Revenge wasn't about rage, it was about patience, precision, control. First, I had to gather every piece of dirt I could find on her. I already had the texts, the hotel receipts, and the photos she had sent him, but I needed more. I needed evidence that would not just expose her cheating, but destroy her reputation, her finances, and her future. And I knew exactly where to start. Michelle had no idea that, over the years, I had kept every financial document, every shared account statement, and every suspicious purchase she made. She thought she was discreet, but she was careless. She thought deleting messages made her safe, but she forgot one simple fact: everything leaves a trail. It was time to follow it. Step 1: the money. Michelle had been siphoning money from our joint account for months. Not a lot at once, just small amounts here and there, enough to go unnoticed. But I noticed. And now, I had the records to prove it. I logged into our shared bank account, carefully reviewing every transaction. There it was, hundreds of dollars spent at expensive restaurants, hotels, and online stores. Things she had never bought for me. The best part? Some of those transactions were done while she was still claiming to be working late. I took screenshots of everything. If she thought she was walking away with half of what I earned, she was in for a rude awakening. Then, I made my first move. I quietly transferred all my personal savings into a separate account. The one she didn't know about. The one she couldn't touch. By the time she realized, she'd be left with nothing. Step 2: the affair. I needed undeniable proof that would not just expose her infidelity, but make sure she suffered for it. That's when I remembered something. Michelle wasn't just cheating, she was cheating with a married man. And his wife had no idea. It took me less than an hour to find her. A quick social media search, a few connections, and there she was, a woman who had no clue that her husband was screwing mine. I crafted an email. Short. Simple. Direct. Subject: you deserve to know the truth. Attachments: screenshots, receipts, photos. No explanation. No fluff. Just the evidence she needed. And then I hit send. Step 3: the reputation kill. Michelle prided herself on her image. She was all about appearances, about being the perfect wife, the perfect socialite, the perfect professional. That was about to change. I had copies of her work emails. I had proof of her personal expenses being written off as business expenses. I had every inappropriate message she had sent while on company time. And I knew exactly who to send them to. One email to her boss. Another to HR. A final one to the board of directors. By the time she woke up the next morning, she'd be unemployed. Step 4: the final blow. I wasn't going to kick her out of the house. No, that would be too easy. I was going to make her leave on her own. I started small, moving all my things into a separate room, locking her out of our shared accounts, removing her name from every financial responsibility. Then, I stopped speaking to her altogether. No arguments. No explanations. Just silence. The kind of silence that drove her insane. And when she finally snapped, when she finally screamed at me demanding to know what the hell was going on, I simply smiled. You wanted out, Michelle. Now you have it. And with that, I walked away, leaving her to drown in the wreckage of the life she had destroyed. She wanted to play games. She never expected that I would be the one to win. Michelle had no idea what was coming. She thought she had control, thought she was the mastermind. But the thing about people like her? They're so convinced of their own brilliance that they never even consider that someone else might outmaneuver them. By the time she realized what I had done, it was already too late. The fallout begins. The first cracks appeared the next morning. I was sitting in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, when she stormed in, phone in hand, looking like she had just walked through hell. "What the fuck did you do?" she hissed. I arched an eyebrow, feigning confusion. "Good morning to you too." "Don't play stupid, Daniel," she shrieked, waving her phone. "My company just fired me. Effective immediately. They said there was misuse of company resources and conduct unbecoming of a professional. I took another slow sip of coffee, enjoying the panic in her voice. "Oh?" I said, tilting my head. "That's awful. Maybe you should have been more careful with your work expenses." Her mouth fell open. She blinked, as if finally realizing that she wasn't just unlucky, this was orchestrated. "You," she whispered, her face turning red with rage. I didn't bother denying it. She lunged at me, slamming her hands on the table. "You just ruined me." I leaned forward, my expression turning ice cold. "No, Michelle. You ruined yourself the moment you decided to screw another man behind my back." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, Daniel. I don't want to lose you." I smiled. A slow, cruel smile. "You already did." And then I walked out, leaving her standing there, broken and alone. Michelle was drowning, and I was going to be the one who held her under. She had spent so much time believing she had control, manipulating the situation to her advantage, lying through her teeth, and treating me like a backup plan. Now, she had nothing. No job. No lover. No reputation. And soon, not even a home. Because I wasn't done yet. The legal checkmate. I spent the next few days making my final moves. Michelle was still trying to pretend that everything was salvageable, but she knew, I could see it in her eyes, that she had lost. She would try to make small talk, act like we were in some awkward phase of our marriage, like we just needed time to work things out. But I ignored her. I treated her like she was invisible. And that silence? That's what killed her the most. She tried a different tactic next, pity. She'd sit on the couch, curled up, looking miserable. She started accidentally letting me see her cry. She'd linger in the kitchen when I was there, sighing heavily, hoping I'd ask what was wrong. I never did. I let her stew in her own misery. Then, one day, she finally broke the silence. "Daniel," she said, her voice small. I didn't even look up from my laptop. "What?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I think we should. Maybe take a break from all this tension. Maybe go to therapy?" I slowly looked up at her, tilting my head. "Therapy?" She nodded quickly, as if she saw a sliver of hope. "Yeah. I mean, we built a life together. Maybe we can fix things if we just..." I let out a soft chuckle. "Michelle," I said, cutting her off. "There's no we anymore." Her face fell. "Daniel, please." I stood up, grabbing a stack of papers from the counter. I was going to wait until after the weekend to do this, but hell, let's just rip the bandage off now. I dropped them in front of her. She looked down, and when she realized what they were, she gasped. Divorce papers. Every detail had already been arranged. And the best part? I had made sure that she walked away with nothing. She swallowed hard. Daniel, we don't have to do this." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You really thought you were going to cheat on me, humiliate me, and then walk away with half of everything?" I let out a cold laugh. "God, Michelle. You're dumber than I thought." Her hands shook as she flipped through the pages. This isn't fair," she whispered. "Fair?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "Fair is not using your husband as a stepping stone while you spread your legs for another man. Fair is not treating me like an idiot while you sneak around behind my back. You don't get to talk about fair, Michelle." She looked up at me, tears welling in her eyes. I held up a hand. "Stop. I don't want to hear it." She swallowed thickly, gripping the edges of the papers. "But I..." "Sign them," I interrupted, my voice like ice. Her eyes searched mine, looking for any sign of weakness, any sign that I'd reconsider. She found none. And slowly, with trembling hands, she picked up the pen. She hesitated, her eyes pleading one last time. "Daniel. Sign the papers." And with that, she finally did. The eviction notice. With the divorce finalized, there was just one last thing to handle, getting Michelle out. She still had this stupid little hope that she could stay in the house, at least until she figured things out. Not a chance. I had already made sure of that. 2 days after she signed the papers, she came home to find all of her belongings boxed up, stacked neatly in the living room. She froze in the doorway, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "What is this?" she stammered. I smirked, leaning against the staircase. You thought you were going to stay here? I gestured toward the door. That's cute. But no, Michelle. This is the day you leave. Her face turned red. You can't just throw me out. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket and held it up. An official eviction notice. Actually, I said, I can. Her mouth fell open. I spoke to the landlord, I continued, my voice calm and collected. Since your name was never actually on the lease, you don't have any rights to this place. And now that we're divorced? I shrugged. You're officially trespassing. Her hands clenched into fists. You're a fucking monster, she screamed. I laughed. No, Michelle. You are. She let out a shaky breath, looking around desperately. I have nowhere to go. I tilted my head. Well, maybe you should call your lover. Her face darkened. Oh, wait, I added, smirking. He wants nothing to do with you. She looked like she wanted to kill me. But the best part? She knew she had no power left. No money. No job. No man waiting for her. She had destroyed her own life. And I was just here to watch. Get your things and get out, I said. She swallowed, then turned away and started grabbing her bags. I watched, arms crossed, as she struggled to carry everything. She looked exhausted, broken. It was the same exhaustion I had felt for months while she toyed with me. And now? Now she was the one suffering. Poetic justice. The last goodbye. When she finally had everything, she turned to me one last time. Her eyes were filled with hatred. And something else. Regret. One day, she whispered, you'll regret this. I smirked. Doubt it. And with that, she walked out the door. I waited until she disappeared down the street. Then, I shut the door behind her. And locked it. The house felt different the moment Michelle was gone. Lighter. Cleaner. As if the poison had finally been drained from my life. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't expected, relief. But I wasn't done yet. Because Michelle wasn't just going to walk away and start over. No, she was going to feel everything she had put me through. She had spent so long making me believe I was nothing, that I was just a co-parent, that I was disposable. Now? Now she was the one with nothing. The desperation begins. It didn't take long before the first cracks started showing. 3 days after Michelle was officially out, I got the first text. Michelle, can we talk? I ignored it. An hour later, another one. Michelle, Daniel, please. I need to see you. I smirked at my phone before turning it off. By the end of the week, I had over a dozen messages. She had gone from casual to pleading. Then came the calls. At first, I let them go to voicemail, but one night, curiosity got the better of me, and I finally listened. Her voice was shaky, barely above a whisper. Daniel. I don't know what to do. I made a mistake. I know I did. Please, can we just talk? I laughed and deleted the message. She wasn't sorry she cheated. She was sorry she lost. The fall of Michelle. The thing about people like Michelle? They don't know how to survive when the world stops revolving around them. She had built her entire life around manipulation, using me, using her lover, using her job to keep herself stable. But now? Now, she was truly alone. And I made sure she stayed that way. I had already reached out to her closest friends, told them everything. Showed them the proof. The receipts, the texts, the photos. They had all turned on her. Her work friends? Gone. Her social circle? Vanished. She tried to reach out to them, but none of them wanted to be associated with her anymore. The moment she lost her power, she became irrelevant. And Michelle couldn't handle being irrelevant. The unraveling? One night, around midnight, there was a knock at my door. I didn't have to guess who it was. I opened it to find Michelle standing there, soaked from the rain, looking like a ghost of the woman she used to be. Her clothes were wrinkled. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes? Bloodshot, desperate. Daniel, she whispered, hugging her arms. Please. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. What do you want, Michelle? She swallowed hard. I have nowhere to go. I smirked. not my problem. Tears welled in her eyes. Daniel, I loved you. I tilted my head. Oh? Is that why you spread your legs for another man? She flinched. She had nothing left. And she knew it. But I wasn't finished. I stepped forward, lowering my voice. You don't love me, Michelle. You loved what I gave you. The security. The money. The stability. I let out a humorless chuckle. And now that it's gone, you suddenly remember you love me? She shook her head rapidly. No. It's not like that. I made a mistake. I got caught up in something I shouldn't have, and I held up a hand, cutting her off. I don't care, Michelle. Her lip trembled. But... Goodbye, Michelle. And with that, I shut the door in her face. I stood there for a moment, waiting. I could hear her breathing on the other side, shallow and uneven. I could almost picture the tears streaming down her face. Then, finally, the sound of her footsteps as she walked away. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. Because I had already won. After that night, Michelle stopped coming to my door. She had finally realized the truth. I wasn't going to save her. I wasn't going to forgive her. And most of all, I wasn't going to be her backup plan. But just because she stopped knocking didn't mean I was done watching her fall. No, Michelle was only at the beginning of her suffering. And I wanted to enjoy every second of it. The last friend she had. A week passed before I heard from her again. This time, it wasn't Michelle who reached out. It was her best friend, Lisa. Lisa and Michelle had been close for years. When we first got together, I actually thought Lisa was a decent person. But over time, I saw how similar they were, how they thrived on gossip, how they used people to get ahead. Still, Lisa had always been loyal to Michelle. So when she texted me, I was curious. Lisa, hey, Daniel. Can we talk? I smirked. I had a pretty good idea of what this was about. But I played along. Me, about what? Lisa, Michelle. She's not doing well. I leaned back in my chair, amused. Me, not my problem. Lisa, Daniel, she's really struggling. She lost her job, she has nowhere to go, and well, she's not in a good place mentally. I stared at the message for a moment. Then, without hesitation, I blocked her number. Let them deal with the mess Michelle created. I had already done my part. Her life in ruins. It wasn't hard to keep tabs on Michelle. Even after everything, she was still desperate for attention. She started posting cryptic messages online, hoping to get sympathy. People will turn on you the moment you need them the most. I thought love was forever, but I guess I was wrong. Everyone betrayed me. I have nothing left. The best part? No one cared. The comments under her posts were brutal. Didn't you cheat on your husband? Lamau. Karma is a bitch. Maybe if you weren't such a lying whore, people would actually feel bad for you. She had built her whole life on lies, on using people, on pretending to be better than everyone else. And now? Now, she was nothing. No job. No lover. No friends. No respect. And she knew it. The final blow. One night, about 2 weeks after Michelle had signed the divorce papers, I got another text. Michelle, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But please. Can we meet? Just one last time? I stared at the message, debating whether to ignore it. Then, I decided, fuck it. I wanted to see her misery one last time. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe, the same place we used to go to on lazy Sunday mornings when we were happy. She looked awful. Her hair was a mess, her face thinner than I remembered. There were dark circles under her eyes. She looked drained. And I loved every second of it. She sat down, clasping her hands together. Thank you for coming. I didn't respond. I just stared at her, waiting. She swallowed hard. I don't know where to start. I tilted my head. Start with why I should care. She flinched. I deserve that. Damn right she did. She took a shaky breath. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I stayed silent. I know I fucked up, she continued, voice trembling. I was selfish. I was cruel. And I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. I finally leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. "And what, exactly, did you have?" She blinked, caught off guard. I smiled coldly. "Did you have a husband who loved you? A home? A good life? Because from what I remember, Michelle, you thought you were better than all of that." Tears welled in her eyes. I don't know why I did what I did." "Liar!" she gasped. I shook my head. "You do know why, Michelle. You wanted to cheat. You chose to betray me. You thought you could have it all." She let out a soft sob, wiping her eyes. I just wish I could go back and fix it." I let out a humorless laugh. "Fix it?" I repeated. "Michelle, there is no fixing this." She looked up at me, desperate. "But I still love you." I leaned in closer, my voice deadly calm. "No, Michelle," I whispered. "You love what I was to you. You love the life I gave you. But me?" I shook my head. "You never loved me. Not really." A tear slid down her cheek. "That's not true." I stood up, grabbing my jacket. "It doesn't matter," I said. "Because I don't love you." She let out a shaky breath. "Daniel. Please." I threw a few bills on the table to cover my coffee, then looked her dead in the eyes. "Goodbye, Michelle." And then I walked out of her life. For good. Michelle was gone from my life. But I wasn't done with her. Not yet. Because the thing about cheaters? They never really learn. They don't reflect, they don't grow, and they sure as hell don't change. And I was about to prove it. The rebound. A month after our last meeting, I got a text from Lisa, Michelle's former best friend. "Lisa, dude. You need to see this." Attached was a screenshot of Michelle's social media. There she was, clinging to some new guy, an older man, maybe in his late 40s, dressed in an expensive suit, his arm wrapped around her waist like she was his latest purchase. The caption? "Fresh starts and new beginnings, heart." I actually laughed out loud. Because of course, Michelle had already found another meal ticket. She didn't love this guy. She didn't care about him. He was just a way out. A way to escape the wreckage of her own mistakes. And I wasn't about to let her get away with it. Digging deeper. It didn't take long to figure out who this guy was. A few minutes of searching, and I had everything: his name, his job, even his wife's name. Yeah. His wife. Because, just like before, Michelle wasn't just dating some single rich guy. She was once again screwing around with a married man. The hypocrisy was delicious. So I did exactly what I had done before. I gathered the proof. The photos, the posts, the little comments Michelle had left under his pictures. And then? I sent it all to his wife. The explosion. It only took 24 hours for everything to implode. Michelle's social media went dark. Her new boyfriend deleted every trace of her. And then, another text from Lisa. "Lisa, holy shit. Michelle just got dumped." I smirked. She had done exactly what I knew she would. She had tried to latch onto another man, thinking she could rebuild her life the easy way. And just like last time, she got exposed for the liar she was. I could only imagine the scene: her new boyfriend finding out, his wife confronting him, Michelle scrambling to explain herself, begging him not to leave. But he did. Because even cheaters don't want to be with other cheaters. And now? Now, Michelle had nothing. Again. The desperate call. That night, my phone rang. I didn't even have to check the screen. I already knew who it was. I let it ring. Then again. And again. By the 5th time, I picked up. Silence. Then, a broken whisper. "Daniel." I leaned back, smirking. "Yes, Michelle?" A shaky breath. Did you do this?" I chuckled. "Do what?" "You ruined my life," she sobbed. I rolled my eyes. "No, Michelle. You ruined your life. I just made sure everyone saw it happen." She let out a choked cry. "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" I tilted my head. "Why did you do it to me?" Silence. She had no answer. Because there was no answer. She had betrayed me, used me, lied to me. And she had never felt an ounce of guilt for it. But now? Now she felt everything. And I wasn't even sorry. "Goodbye, Michelle," I said calmly. And this time, I blocked her number. Blocking Michelle should have been the end of it. But people like her? They don't just let go. They cling. They scratch. They desperately try to regain control. And Michelle was desperate. The breaking point. A week after her latest failed affair, I got a call from an unknown number. I usually ignore those, but something told me to pick up. The moment I did, a familiar voice spat through the receiver. "You motherfucker." I smirked. "Ah, there she is." "Michelle," I said calmly. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "You ruined my life," she screamed. "I lost my job, my home, my friends, and now you've made sure I have nothing left." I let out a slow breath, pretending to think. "Yeah. And?" She let out a choked sob. "Why? Why couldn't you just leave me alone?" I chuckled. "You mean the way you left me alone while you were screwing another man behind my back?" Silence. That was the thing about people like Michelle. They could dish it out, but they could never take it. "You have to stop," she whispered, voice shaking. "Please, Daniel. I can't take any more." I sighed, pretending to be sympathetic. "You're right, Michelle. You can't take any more." For a moment, hope flickered in her voice. "So, you'll stop?" I smiled coldly. "No." A broken gasp. "You deserve all of this," I continued. "Every ounce of pain, every loss, every sleepless night. You spent years thinking you were untouchable. That you could use people, cheat, manipulate, lie. And now?" I laughed. "Now, you're just another washed-up cheater with nowhere to go. Daniel. Goodbye, Michelle." And I hung up. She tried calling again. And again. I didn't answer. She had nothing left. And I wanted her to feel it. After that call, Michelle went completely off the grid. No more social media. No texts, no calls, nothing. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she had finally learned her lesson. But then, Lisa texted me again. "Lisa, you're not gonna believe this." She sent me a picture. It was Michelle, working at a cheap diner, her hair tied back, wearing a worn-out uniform, serving tables. I couldn't help but laugh. This was a woman who used to brag about her high-status job, who looked down on average people like they were beneath her. And now? She was waiting tables just to survive. Karma was a beautiful thing. 2 weeks later, I ran into her. It was pure coincidence. I had gone out for lunch with a friend, and guess who ended up being our waitress? Michelle. The moment she saw me, her face dropped. She looked exhausted. Her once perfectly styled hair was now dull and messy. The confidence, the arrogance, the smug superiority, all of it was gone. For the first time, Michelle looked small. She forced a tight smile. "Daniel." I smiled back. "Michelle." She swallowed hard, glancing around as if looking for an escape. But there was none. "How have you been?" I asked casually, sipping my drink. She let out a weak chuckle. I've been better." I nodded, pretending to be sympathetic. "Yeah, I can see that." Her eyes flickered with something, pain, shame, maybe even regret. But I didn't care. She deserved this. She took our order, barely meeting my gaze, and rushed away. My friend raised an eyebrow. "Dude, was that?" "Yep." They smirked. "Damn. That's rough." I leaned back in my chair, satisfied. Yeah. For her. Michelle wanted to ruin my life. Instead, I had ruined hers. And I had zero regrets. Seeing Michelle like that, broken, humiliated, waiting tables just to scrape by, should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because there was still one thing she hadn't done. She hadn't truly admitted her guilt. Sure, she had cried. She had begged. She had tried to play the victim. But she had never actually said the words. Never fully owned up to what she had done. And I wanted to hear it. I needed to hear it. So I set the stage for the final act. The invitation. A few days after our unexpected meeting at the diner, I sent Michelle a text. Meet me for coffee. Tomorrow. 3 p.m. The place on 5th. She didn't reply right away. Then, after an hour. Michelle, why? Closure. She hesitated. I could tell she was scared. Scared that this was another trap. Scared of what I might say. But in the end, she agreed. Michelle, okay. The final confession. The next afternoon, I arrived early and waited. Michelle walked in exactly 5 minutes late. She looked nervous, hesitant, like a woman who knew she was walking into her own execution but didn't know how to stop it. She sat down across from me, fidgeting with her hands. Daniel. I gave her a slow nod. Michelle. A long silence. Finally, she swallowed hard. Why did you ask me here? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. You know why. She looked away, biting her lip. Daniel, Say it, I interrupted. Her brows furrowed. Say what? I tilted my head, watching her carefully. Say what you did. She let out a shaky breath. I didn't blink. Out loud, Michelle. Her hands clenched into fists. You already know. Then it shouldn't be so hard to say. Her eyes flickered with something, anger, frustration, shame. But I wasn't letting her off the hook. She had spent months lying to my face. Now? She was going to say the truth. With her own damn mouth. A long silence. Then, finally, her shoulders slumped. I cheated on you, she whispered. I raised an eyebrow. Louder. Her lip trembled. I cheated on you, she repeated, voice shaking. I leaned back, nodding. There it is. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Good. She let out a slow breath. I don't know why I did it. I smirked. Where? Her eyes snapped to mine. I don't. I wasn't thinking straight. Bullshit, I said calmly. You knew what you were doing. You planned it. Lied about it. Hid it. You did it because you wanted to. Her lips parted, but she had no words. Because she knew I was right. Another long silence. Then, finally, she whispered, I destroyed everything. I took a sip of my coffee, savoring the moment. Yeah, Michelle. You did. She wiped at her eyes quickly, as if embarrassed to be crying in front of me. I lost everything, she muttered. My job. My friends. My home. And you. I tilted my head. And whose fault is that? She swallowed hard. Mine. The final confession. I smiled. Good. I just wanted to hear you say it. She looked at me, confused. That's it? I stood up, grabbing my coat. That's it. I had what I came for. She had nothing left to offer. Goodbye, Michelle, I said one last time. And this time? She didn't try to stop me. She just sat there, crying into her coffee. Alone. The way she deserved to be.